A champagne glass shatters in Darius Moon's hand as bullets tear through the hotel lobby, and in the chaos, he discovers the woman who vanished 5 years ago standing frozen with a 4-year-old boy who calls him Appa. When enemies from a blood feud learn about the son he never knew existed, this ruthless underworld kingpin must choose between the violent empire he's built and the fragile family he's just found. But protection comes with a price, and the greatest threat might not be the assassins closing in, it's the father Darius thought was dead, pulling strings from the shadows. The bullet shattered the champagne glass in Darius Moon's hand before he even heard the shot. Instinct took over. He dove left, yanking his bodyguard down with him as the Golden Baobab Hotel's lobby erupted into chaos. Screams. Running feet. The sharp crack of a second shot embedding itself in marble where his head had been seconds ago. His hand was already inside his jacket, fingers wrapping around cold steel, when he saw her. The woman. Frozen near the concierge desk, dark skin luminous under crystal chandeliers, eyes wide with terror. And beside her a child. Small. Maybe 4 years old. Mixed heritage, Korean features blending with African in a face that made Darius's breath catch for reasons he couldn't immediately name. Get down! Darius roared, but his voice was drowned by a third shot. The woman moved then, scooping the boy into her arms and dropping behind a leather sofa with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd known danger before. That registered somewhere in Darius's mind even as his bodyguard, Kwasi, returned fire toward the hotel's entrance. "Sir, we need to move," Kwasi shouted, but Darius was already running, not toward the exit, toward the woman and child. Because the shooter was repositioning, and the sofa wouldn't stop a determined bullet. He reached them in 4 strides, his body a shield as he hauled them both toward the conference wing. "Stay low, move fast," he commanded, his Korean accented English clipped and cold. The woman met his eyes for one electric second, recognition flickering there, impossible and unmistakable, before she nodded and ran. They burst through double doors into a private hallway. Darius's security team converged from 3 directions, weapons drawn, securing the space with lethal efficiency. The shooting stopped. Sirens wailed in the distance. And in the sudden, ringing silence, the child in the woman's arms started to cry. "It's okay, Kofi, it's okay," she whispered, her voice shaking but strong. She rocked him, pressing kisses to his forehead, and Darius felt something in his chest crack open. He knew that voice. 5 years hadn't erased it from his memory, the way it had gasped his name in darkness, the way it had whispered goodbye before dawn. Imani. Her name left his lips before he could stop it. She looked up. Their eyes locked. And the world narrowed to just this, her face older now, harder, but still achingly familiar. The face he'd searched for in crowds for months after that night. The face that had vanished like smoke, leaving him with nothing but questions and a bullet scar on his ribs from the violence that had thrown them together. "Darius," she breathed, and it sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. The boy Kofi lifted his tear-streaked face from his mother's shoulder. He blinked at Darius with eyes that were somehow familiar too, dark and sharp and curious despite his fear. The child's gaze traveled over Darius's face, lingering on the scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the hard line of his jaw, the expensive cut of his suit now torn at the shoulder. Then Kofi did something that made the earth stop spinning. He reached out small hands toward Darius and said, clear as a bell, Appa. The Korean word for daddy. Imani went rigid. Kofi, no. But the boy was already squirming out of her arms, toddling toward Darius with the fearless confidence of a child who didn't understand the weight of what he'd just said. Appa, he said again, more insistent, and wrapped small arms around Darius's leg. Darius couldn't move, couldn't breathe. His bodyguards exchanged sharp glances. Imani's face had drained of all color, her lips parted in silent horror. And Kofi just held on, pressing his face against Darius's thigh like he'd been waiting his whole short life to do exactly this. "Sir?" Kwasi's voice was careful, questioning. The air in the hallway felt compressed, dangerous. Darius looked down at the child. Really looked. The eyes, his mother's depth, but his father's shape. The nose, the set of the jaw, the way his hair grew at the temples. The boy was wearing a small silver bracelet with Korean characters engraved on it. Characters Darius recognized because they were his family name. Moon. His hands were shaking when he reached down to touch Kofi's head. The child leaned into the touch, and Darius felt the world tilt on its axis. For years old. The math was simple, brutal, undeniable. He raised his eyes to Imani. She was standing now, backing away, her hands raised like she could ward off what was coming. "Darius, I can explain. Is he mine?" His voice was a blade, sharp and deadly quiet. She flinched. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Is he mine?" The silence stretched like wire pulled too tight. Somewhere in the hotel, police were shouting, securing the scene. But in this hallway, there was only this question and the terrible, thundering truth written all over Imani's face. "Yes," she finally whispered. "He's yours." The words detonated like a bomb. Darius's vision tunneled. His carefully constructed control, the iron discipline that had kept him alive in a world of violence and betrayal, fractured. He had a son. A child he'd never known about. For years of birthdays, first words, first steps, all stolen from him. "You ran." The accusation was quiet, but it carried the weight of years. "That night, you disappeared. You were pregnant, and you ran from me. I ran from your world." Imani's voice cracked, raw with emotion. "You think I didn't know what you were? What you did?" "That night, Darius, we were in the middle of a war zone. People died. You killed 3 men right in front of me. And then she broke off, wrapping her arms around herself. I woke up alone, found out I was pregnant 2 weeks later, and decided my child wouldn't grow up in blood and bullets. That wasn't your choice to make alone." Each word was ice and fire. "He's my son. He's my son," she shot back, fierce despite the tears on her cheeks. "I raised him. I fed him, protected him, loved him every single day while you were, what? Running your empire? Killing people?" Darius took a step forward. Kwasi tensed, but Darius waved him off. He closed the distance between himself and Imani until he could smell her perfume, same as 5 years ago, jasmine and something uniquely her. "You had no right to keep him from me. I had every right to keep him safe." They stood there, inches apart, breathing hard, years of hurt and anger and something else, something dangerous and desperate, crackling between them. Kofi, still clinging to Darius's leg, looked between them with worried eyes. "Mama?" His small voice broke the moment. "Mama, don't cry." Imani's face crumpled. She dropped to her knees, pulling Kofi into her arms. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Everything's okay." But everything wasn't okay. Darius could feel it in the air, the wrongness of it all. The shooting hadn't been random. His instincts, honed by years of survival in Ghana's underworld, were screaming warnings. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through security footage his team had already sent him. Froze the frame on the shooter's face. His blood turned to ice. The tattoo on the shooter's neck, a stylized lion with a broken chain. The symbol of the Kamathi clan. The family that had been at war with his organization for 2 decades. The family whose leader, Jabari Kamathi, had sworn a blood oath to destroy every member of the Moon bloodline after Darius's father had killed Jabari's father in Busan 15 years ago. Darius's fingers tightened on his phone until the screen cracked. "They know," he said, his voice dead calm in the way that made dangerous men nervous. "The Kamathis know about him." Imani's head snapped up. "Know about who? What are you talking about?" He turned the phone toward her, showed her the frozen frame. "The shooter. Kamathi clan." They've been hunting my family for 15 years, and now he looked at Kofi, felt something primal and violent surge through his chest. Now they know I have a son. The color drained from Imani's face again. No, that's not. We've been careful. I changed my name. I moved 6 times in 5 years. How long have you been in Accra? 3 months, but too long. Darius was already moving, his mind calculating angles, threats, next moves. Kwasi, pull the hotel's exterior surveillance for the past week. Every camera within a 3-block radius. I want to know who's been watching this place. He turned back to Imani, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. Pack your things. You and Kofi are coming with me. Like hell we are. Imani stood, pulling Kofi behind her in a protective stance that might have been admirable if it wasn't so foolish. I don't know what kind of game you think this is, but we're not going anywhere with you. I've kept us safe for 4 years without your help. Mama. Kofi's voice was small, scared. He was picking up on the tension, the way children always did. I want to go with Appa. The word hit Imani like a physical blow. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, Darius saw past her defiance to the exhaustion underneath. The weight of 4 years spent running, hiding, looking over her shoulder. She was tired. And she was terrified. Imani. He said her name softer this time. That shooting wasn't random. They were aiming for me, yes, but they saw you. They saw him. Kamathi doesn't leave loose ends, and a 4-year-old child with my features. He paused, let that sink in. You can hate me. You can curse the day you met me. But right now, the safest place for our son is behind my walls with my guns. Your world killed my parents. The words came out broken, and Darius felt them like knives. Crossfire in Lagos when I was 16. Gang war over territory that had nothing to do with them. They were just in the wrong place, and they died, and I swore, her voice cracked. I swore I'd never let my child anywhere near that life. Darius felt something twist in his chest. He hadn't known. That night 5 years ago, they'd barely exchanged histories between gasped breaths and desperate kisses. He'd known she was terrified of the violence around them. He hadn't known why it was personal. I can't change your past, he said quietly. And I won't lie about what I am. But, Imani, they already found you. The choice isn't between safety and danger anymore. It's between my protection, and he pulled up another image on his phone, handed it to her. She looked. Went pale. When was this taken? Yesterday. Outside Kofi's preschool. The photo showed Imani holding Kofi's hand, crossing the street. In the background, barely visible, a man with a camera. The same tattoo visible on his wrist. Imani's hands started shaking. Oh God. Oh God, they've been watching. How long? At least a week. Probably longer. Darius took the phone back, his jaw tight. They were building a profile. Learning your patterns. The shooting today wasn't the attack, it was the opening move. They wanted to see how I'd react if I'd protect you. Now they know. Know what? That you matter to me. That he matters to me. Darius looked at Kofi, felt that strange, fierce thing in his chest expand until it was hard to breathe. Which makes you both targets. Imani pressed a hand to her mouth, swaying slightly. Kwasi moved to steady her, but she waved him off. I need to think. I need to, Kofi baby, come here. She picked up their son, held him tight against her chest. Over his head, her eyes met Darius's. If I agree to this, temporarily, it's for his safety. Not because I trust you. Not because I forgive you for what you are. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Darius's voice was steel. I'm asking for a chance to protect my family. The word hung between them. Family. Such a simple word for such a complicated truth. Fine. Imani's voice was barely a whisper. But the second the threat is over, you're free to go. The lie tasted bitter, but Darius told it anyway. Because the truth was, now that he'd found them, now that he knew he had a son, he would burn the world down before he let them disappear again. My compound is in Lab 1. 20-minute drive. We leave now. The ride was tense and silent. Darius sat across from Imani and Kofi in the back of his armored Mercedes, two security vehicles flanking them. Kofi had fallen asleep against his mother's shoulder, exhausted by fear and confusion. Imani stared out the window, her jaw tight, occasionally touching Kofi's hair like she needed to confirm he was still there. "He looks like you," Darius said finally, breaking the silence. Imani didn't look at him. "He has my mother's smile. Does he know about me?" I told him his father was far away, that he loved him but couldn't be here. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I showed him photos of Korean culture, taught him basic words. I didn't want him to grow up not knowing half of who he is. Something in Darius's chest tightened. "You taught him to call me Appa." I taught him the word. I never thought. She finally turned to look at him, and her eyes were wet. "He saw you, and something in him just knew. Children do that sometimes. They recognize blood even when logic says they shouldn't." Darius wanted to reach across the space between them, wanted to touch her face the way he had 5 years ago when the world was ending and they'd found something like salvation in each other's arms. But the distance now was more than physical. It was years of lies and hurt and choices that couldn't be unmade. "I won't fail him," he said instead. "Whatever you think of me, whatever I've done, I won't fail our son." Imani studied his face for a long moment. "You say that now. But your world doesn't allow for softness, Darius. It doesn't allow for love. How long before Kofi becomes just another piece on your chessboard?" "He's not a piece. He's everything." The words came out raw, unguarded. "I've built an empire on blood and fear. I've made enemies of men who would kill children to prove a point. And now I have a son, and every single one of those enemies will see him as leverage, as weakness." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "But they're wrong. He's not my weakness. He's my reason to be more ruthless than I've ever been. Anyone who touches him dies screaming." Imani's breath caught. She searched his eyes, looking for something, truth, maybe, or delusion. "You really mean that?" "Every word." The car pulled through heavy iron gates into a compound that looked more like a fortress than a home. High walls topped with cameras and sensors. Armed guards at every corner. The main house was stunning, a fusion of Korean minimalism and West African luxury, all clean lines and rich wood and expansive windows that somehow didn't compromise security. Kofi woke as the car stopped, rubbing his eyes. "Mama? Where are we?" "Somewhere safe, baby." Imani's voice was tight as she helped him out of the car. Darius watched his son take in the compound with wide eyes. The boy's gaze landed on a basketball hoop in the courtyard, then on the koi pond with its small bridge, then back to Darius. "You live here, Appa?" Kofi's voice was odd. "Yes." Darius knelt down to the boy's level, a position that made his security team nervous, but felt right. "And now you're going to stay here too? For a little while. Do you have toys?" Despite everything, Darius felt his lips quirk. "We'll get you whatever you want." "I want a dinosaur. A big one." "Done." Imani made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "You can't just buy his love with toys." Darius stood, met her eyes over their son's head. "I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to give him what he should have had all along. A father." The compound's interior was even more impressive than the exterior. Imani walked through marble hallways lined with African art and Korean pottery, her hand gripping Kofi's tightly. Every door they passed had a guard stationed nearby. Every window had sensors blinking red. This wasn't a home, it was a bunker disguised as luxury. "The east wing is yours," Darius said, leading them up a curved staircase. 3 bedrooms, private bathroom, sitting area. The windows are bulletproof. The doors have biometric locks keyed to your fingerprints. I'll have them programmed within the hour." "How thoughtful," Imani muttered. "A gilded cage." Darius stopped walking, turned to face her. His security team hung back, giving them space. "You want honesty? Fine. Yes, it's a cage. Yes, you're trapped here until I neutralize the threat. But your son is alive, and he'll stay that way. That's more than I can say for the alternative. Before Imani could respond, Kofi tugged on Darius's jacket. Appa, I'm hungry. The simple request seemed to diffuse the tension. Darius's expression softened as he looked down at his son. What do you want to eat? Jollof rice. Mama makes the best jollof rice. Kofi beamed up at Imani, oblivious to her turmoil. Then we'll have the chef make jollof rice. Darius pulled out his phone, sent a quick message. 30 minutes. In the meantime, let me show you your rooms. The suite was beautiful, hardwood floors, plush furniture, a balcony overlooking the compound's gardens. Kofi immediately ran to the window, pressing his face against the glass. Mama, look. There's a pool. Imani stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself. She looked lost, displaced. Darius dismissed his guards with a gesture, waited until they were alone. I know this isn't what you wanted, he said quietly. You don't know anything about what I want. Her voice was sharp, but underneath he heard the fear. For years, Darius. For years I've kept him safe, kept him happy, kept him away from violence. And in one day, all of that is gone. It was already gone. You just didn't know it yet. He moved closer, careful not to crowd her. The Kamathis had you marked. If I hadn't been at that hotel today, but you were. Convenient, wasn't it? She turned to face him, eyes blazing. You show up, bullets start flying, and suddenly we need your protection. How do I know you didn't orchestrate this whole thing? Darius felt anger flash through him, hot and quick. You think I'd endanger my own son for manipulation? You think that little of me. I don't know what to think of you. I don't know you. Imani's voice rose, then dropped when she remembered Kofi was in the room. That night 5 years ago, we had a few hours. Great sex and adrenaline, and then you were gone. I don't know if you're a monster or a man or something in between. Then let me show you. Darius kept his voice level controlled. I have 3 weeks of surveillance footage to review. Security protocols to update. Guards to debrief. But first, I'm going to have dinner with my son. You can join us, or you can hide in this room. Your choice. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, Imani, I'm not sorry I found you. I'm only sorry it took so long. Dinner was awkward at first. The dining room was too large, too formal, the long table designed for business meetings rather than family meals. But Kofi's chatter filled the silence, his 4-year-old enthusiasm infectious as he told Darius about his favorite cartoons, his best friend at preschool, the time he saw a real monkey at the zoo. Darius listened to every word like it was scripture. He asked questions, encouraged stories, and when Kofi accidentally spilled juice on the pristine white tablecloth, he just smiled and said, "It happens. Don't worry about it." Imani watched this interaction with guarded eyes, seeing glimpses of the man beneath the legend. The way Darius's whole face transformed when Kofi laughed. The careful gentleness in his hands when he helped cut the boy's chicken. The genuine interest in every mundane detail of their son's life. Appa, do you know Taekwondo? Kofi asked suddenly, bouncing in his seat. I do. How did you know? Mama said Korean daddies sometimes know Taekwondo. Can you teach me? Darius glanced at Imani, something unreadable in his eyes. If your mama says it's okay. Kofi turned pleading eyes on his mother. Please, mama? Please, please, please. Imani sighed. We'll see, baby. Maybe tomorrow. Yes. Kofi pumped his small fist in the air, and despite everything, Imani felt a smile tug at her lips. After dinner, she gave Kofi a bath in the enormous marble bathroom, helped him into pajamas, and tucked him into the king-sized bed that dwarfed his small body. He was asleep within minutes, exhausted by the day's events. She found Darius on the balcony, staring out at the compound's perimeter. He'd removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, and in the moonlight, she could see the scar on his forearm, the one he'd gotten the night they met, throwing himself between her and a knife. "He's asleep," she said, stepping out to join him. Darius nodded but didn't turn around. "Thank you for keeping him safe all these years. For raising him right." The gratitude surprised her. "I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it for him. That's why I'm grateful." He finally looked at her, and in his eyes, she saw exhaustion that matched her own. "I meant what I said earlier. I won't fail him." "What about failing me?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Darius studied her face, and something shifted in the air between them. The same electric charge from 5 years ago, dangerous and undeniable. "What do you want from me, Imani?" "The truth. About who you are. What you do. Why the Kamathis want you dead." She moved closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "If I'm trapped here, if my son is in danger because of your world, I deserve to know what that world is." Darius was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled to a video file, and handed it to her. "This is from 2 days ago. Team report. Watch it." Imani pressed play. The footage showed a nighttime raid, men in tactical gear storming a warehouse. Gunfire. Explosions. And at the center of it all, Darius, moving with lethal efficiency as he took down 3 men. The brutality of it made her stomach turn, but she forced herself to keep watching. The video ended with Darius standing over a kneeling man, gun pressed to his head. "Tell Jabari," Darius said on the video, his voice cold as death, "that the Moon family doesn't forget. And we don't forgive." Imani handed the phone back, her hand shaking. "You're a killer." "Yes. You enjoy it." "Sometimes." His honesty was brutal. "The men I kill are worse than me, if that matters. Traffickers. Slavers. The kind of people who profit from suffering. I control the underworld in this city, but I have rules. Lines I don't cross. And the Kamathis? Cross every line." Jabari's father killed 17 people, including children, to prove a point to my father 15 years ago. So my father killed him. Then someone killed my father. Darius's jaw tightened. Or so I thought. Now I'm the head of the family, and Jabari wants revenge for his father's death. Blood for blood. It's the old way. So this never ends, Imani whispered. The violence just keeps cycling. Unless someone breaks it. Darius turned to face her fully. "I built this empire on fear and blood because it's the only language these men understand." But Kofi, his voice softened. "He's a chance to be different. To be better." I look at him, and I see everything I could have been if I'd had a choice. "You have a choice now," Imani said. "Walk away. Leave this life. We could disappear, all 3 of us, go somewhere. And they'd hunt us to the ends of the earth." Darius shook his head. "You can't run from this, Imani. I learned that when I tried to leave after my father died. They burned down my mother's house with her inside. Sent me her wedding ring in a box." His voice went flat dead. "There is no walking away. There's only winning or dying." Imani felt tears sting her eyes. For him. For Kofi. For the impossible situation they were all trapped in. Then what do? We end it. I dismantle the Kamathi operation piece by piece until there's nothing left. And then he reached out, hesitated, then gently touched her face. Then maybe we figure out what we are to each other. Beyond parents. Beyond this. The touch sent electricity through her. She should pull away. Should maintain distance. But God help her, part of her remembered that night 5 years ago. Remembered feeling safe in his arms even as the world burned around them. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not just for me. For Kofi. For what this life will do to him." "I'm terrified," Darius said. "I've stared down loaded guns without flinching. But the thought of failing him, of him growing up to hate me," he swallowed hard. "That's a fear I've never known." Before Imani could respond, Darius's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold and hard. "We have a problem." Darius strode back inside, Imani following close behind. In his office, 3 men waited: Kwasi and 2 others she didn't recognize. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. "Show her," Darius commanded, his voice lethal calm. One of the men pulled up footage on a large monitor. Imani's blood turned to ice. It was her hotel room from this morning, before the shooting. A man in maintenance uniform entered with a passkey, moved directly to Kofi's backpack, and planted something small inside the outer pocket. The tracking device. "That's not what concerns me most," Darius said. He fast-forwarded the footage. The same man left the room, walked down the hallway, and stopped. Turned. Looked directly at the camera and smiled. Then he made a gesture, drawing his finger across his throat. "Rashid Osei," Kwasi said, his voice tight with fury. "You're second in command for 6 years. He's been feeding information to Jabari Kamathi for at least 3 months. Imani felt the room spin. "Someone you trusted did this?" "Trust is a luxury I can no longer afford." Darius's hands clenched into fists. "Where is he now?" "We have him in the lower level. Found him trying to leave through the east gate 20 minutes ago." Kwasi's expression was grim. He had a burner phone with text to a Kamathi number. "They know about the woman and child. They know they're here." Darius was already moving toward the door. "Keep them safe," he ordered Kwasi, gesturing to Imani. "No one gets past you. No one." "Wait." Imani grabbed his arm, felt the coiled tension beneath his sleeve. "What are you going to do?" He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw the monster beneath the man. His eyes were empty, cold as black ice. "What I should have done the moment I suspected betrayal. I'm going to make him talk, and then I'm going to make him pay." "Darius, stay with our son." He pulled free from her grip, his voice softening just slightly. "Please, let me protect you the only way I know how." Then he was gone, disappearing down a staircase she hadn't noticed before. Kwasi positioned himself by the door, and the other guards fanned out through the hallway. Imani stood frozen, her mind racing. She should go check on Kofi. Should lock herself in that beautiful cage upstairs and pretend the violence below wasn't happening. But she'd spent 4 years running from the truth of what Darius was. Maybe it was time to face it. "Where does that staircase go?" she asked Kwasi. "Somewhere you don't want to be, ma'am. I need to see. I need to understand what he is." She met the guard's eyes, willing him to understand. "I can't protect our son from this world if I don't know what it looks like." Kwasi studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "Follow me. But when you see what's down there, you don't get to unsee it." The basement was exactly what she expected and somehow worse. Concrete walls. Soundproofing. A single chair bolted to the floor where a man sat bound, blood already dripping from his split lip. Rashid Osei. And standing before him, Darius, rolled sleeves revealing the scars on his forearms like a roadmap of violence survived. "Why?" Darius's voice was conversational, almost gentle. That scared Imani more than if he'd been screaming. 6 years, Rashid. You were my brother. I trusted you with my life." Rashid spat blood on the floor. "Your father killed mine in Kumasi. Did you know that? 15 years ago, before the Busan incident. Your father's empire was built on my father's corpse. So you went to the Kamathis. To the family that would have killed you in the street 3 years ago if I hadn't intervened." Darius circled the chair slowly. "Betrayal for betrayal. Blood for blood. When does it end, Rashid? When your bloodline is erased." Rashid's eyes were wild with hatred. "Jabari promised me your son dies first. Slowly. While you watch. Then the woman. Then you." Darius moved so fast Imani barely saw it. His fist connected with Rashid's jaw with a crack that echoed off the walls. "Wrong answer. Stop." Imani's voice rang out before she could stop herself. Both men turned to look at her, Rashid with surprise, Darius with something like anguish. "Imani, get out of here." Darius's voice was strained. "No." She moved closer, forcing herself not to flinch at the blood, the rage, the barely contained violence. If this is your world, if this is what Kofi will inherit, then I need to see it. She looked at Rashid. You'd hurt a child to settle a debt that's not his? Rashid laughed, a broken sound. Children pay for their father's sins. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. Then it needs to stop working that way. Imani turned to Darius. You said you wanted to be different. To break the cycle. Prove it. Don't become the monster he expects. He threatened our son. Darius's voice was barely human. I know. And you're going to make him pay, I understand that. But don't let Kofi grow up knowing his father's hands are stained with blood spilled in rage. She moved closer, placed her hand over his clenched fist. Be smart. Be strategic. Get the information you need, then let the law handle him. Darius looked at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. The law doesn't touch men like us. Then you're justice. But not torture. Not this. She held his gaze, willing him to see reason. Please. For a long moment, the only sound was Rashid's labored breathing. Then Darius stepped back, unclenched his fists. You have 60 seconds to tell me everything you know about Kamathi's operation. Location of his base, numbers, weapons, plans. Or I let her leave, and I forget I ever wanted to be a better man. Rashid's eyes darted between them. He saw the truth in Darius's face. This was the only mercy he'd get. Team report. Warehouse 7. Jabari's been stockpiling weapons for 3 weeks. Russian AKs, Chinese grenades, American body armor. He's planning something big. When? Tomorrow night. Shipment goes to Abidjan. After that, Rashid's voice dropped. After that, he's coming for you. For your compound. He has 40 men, and they all want you dead. Darius pulled out his phone, recorded Rashid's confession. Shipment manifests. Guard rotations. Everything. For the next 10 minutes, Rashid talked. Imani listened, horrified by the scope of the operation. This wasn't just gang violence, this was war. And Darius was standing at the center of it, calm and controlled even as his world threatened to implode. When Rashid finished, Darius nodded to Kwasi. Take him to the police. Anonymous tip about the weapons cache. Let them find him there. Rashid's eyes went wide. You're not going to kill me? I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to let you live knowing you betrayed everything for nothing. Darius leaned close. Your sister, the one Jabari supposedly has hostage? We found her 3 days ago. Safe house in Takoradi. She's been there the whole time. He played you, and you fell for it. The devastation on Rashid's face was absolute. Kwasi and another guard dragged him away, his protests echoing down the corridor. Then it was just Darius and Imani in that terrible room. You knew about his sister? Imani asked. I suspected. Confirmed it this morning. Darius's voice was hollow. He betrayed me for a lie. And you let him live anyway. Because you asked me to. He turned to face her fully. I've done terrible things, Imani. Things that would make you run screaming. But I heard you. I'm trying. Imani's throat tightened. Warehouse 7. Tomorrow night. You're going after them. I have to. It's the only way to end this before they come here. Before they get close to Kofi. His jaw set with determination. I'm going to burn their operation to the ground. And if you don't come back? The question hung between them. Darius reached out, cupped her face with surprising gentleness. Then Kwasi has instructions. Money, documents, a safe house in Accra, and 3 more in other countries. You and Kofi will be protected, hidden, given everything you need to start over. I don't want your contingency plans. She stopped, unsure what she wanted. For him to be safe? For this nightmare to end? For the impossible, a life where they could be a real family? What do you want, Imani? His thumb traced her cheekbone, and she shivered despite herself. I want Kofi to have a father who comes home. The admission cost her. I want him to know you, not just as a name or a legend, but as a man who's there for birthdays and scraped knees and bad dreams. Then I'll come home. Darius said it like a vow. I'll end this threat and I'll come home to both of you. Before she could respond, he kissed her. It was desperate and fierce, tasting of violence and promises and the same wild connection they'd shared 5 years ago. Imani knew she should push him away, should maintain the walls she'd built. Instead, she kissed him back, pouring 4 years of fear and loneliness and impossible longing into the press of her lips against his. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Don't make promises you can't keep," she whispered. "I've never broken a promise in my life." Darius stepped back, his expression hardening into something lethal and focused. "Stay with Kofi. Tomorrow this ends." He walked away, and Imani was left standing in that basement room, tasting blood and promise on her lips, wondering if she'd just kissed him hello or goodbye. The next evening arrived too quickly. Imani spent the day in a fog of anxiety, playing with Kofi, reading him stories, holding him close while trying not to let him see her fear. Darius had left at dawn with 20 men, armed to the teeth, his face carved from stone. He'd stopped by Kofi's room first, kissed their sleeping son's forehead, and whispered something in Korean that Imani couldn't translate. Then he'd looked at her. No words. Just a look that said everything. "I'll come back, I promise. Wait for me." Now it was 8 p.m., and her phone buzzed with a message from Kwasi. Contact made. Radio silent for next 2 hours. 2 hours of not knowing if Darius was alive or dead. 2 hours of imagining Kofi growing up without a father, just like she had. Imani paced the sitting room, unable to sit still, jumping at every sound. "Mama, why are you sad?" Kofi looked up from his coloring book, concern in his young eyes. "I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking." "About Appa?" The boy's intuition was unnerving. "He's coming back. He promised me." "When did he promise you?" "This morning. He said he had to go fight bad guys, but he'd come back for my dinosaur." Kofi returned to his coloring, completely confident in a promise Imani desperately wanted to believe. The minutes crawled by like hours. Imani tried to distract herself, but every creak of the house, every footstep in the hallway made her heart leap. At 9:30, gunfire erupted in the distance, sharp cracks that made her blood run cold. Kwasi burst through the door. "Get to the panic room. Now." "What's happening?" They hit the warehouse, but Kamathi wasn't there. "It was a trap, he's coming here." Kwasi was already moving, grabbing Kofi, heading for the hidden door behind the bookshelf. "We have maybe 5 minutes. The panic room was small, reinforced steel, stocked with supplies. Kwasi handed Imani a pistol. "You remember how to use this?" She nodded, her hands shaking. She'd learned to shoot years ago, after her parents died. Swore she'd never need it. "Where's Darius?" "On his way. He took a bullet to the shoulder, but he's alive." "He's coming." Kwasi's phone buzzed. His face went pale. "They've breached the outer wall. 20+ hostiles. Ma'am, whatever happens, you stay in here until Darius or I come for you. Nobody else. Understand?" Before she could answer, an explosion rocked the compound. The lights flickered. Kofi started crying, and Imani pulled him close, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'll be right outside," Kwasi said, sealing the door. The next 20 minutes were hell. Muffled gunfire. Shouting. Another explosion. Kofi sobbed into her chest while Imani held him with one arm and gripped the pistol with the other, safety off, finger on the trigger. She whispered prayers to a god she wasn't sure she believed in. "Please let Darius come back. Please let us survive this. Please don't make Kofi an orphan." Then silence. Heavy, suffocating silence that was somehow worse than the chaos. Footsteps approached the panic room. Slow. Deliberate. Imani raised the gun, aimed at the door, her breath coming in short gasps. "Imani." Darius's voice, strained with pain but unmistakably his. "It's me. Open the door." She didn't move. "How do I know it's really you?" Our first night together, you told me you were afraid of thunderstorms because they reminded you of the night your parents died. You said my heartbeat was louder than the thunder, and it made you feel safe. His voice cracked. Please, let me in. Imani's hands shook as she unlocked the door. It swung open, and Darius stumbled in, blood soaking through his left shoulder, his face pale but his eyes alive. Behind him, the hallway was carnage, bodies, smoke, the acrid smell of gunpowder. Appa. Kofi launched himself at Darius, and despite his injury, Darius caught him with his good arm. Hey, little man. I'm okay. We're all okay now. He pressed his face into Kofi's hair, and Imani saw his shoulders shake. Relief or pain or both. You're bleeding, she said, moving closer. Flesh wound. I've had worse. But he swayed slightly, and she caught him, helped him sit against the wall. Kofi clung to his neck, refusing to let go. Kamathi? She asked. Dead. Along with most of his command structure. The rest scattered. Darius winced as she examined his shoulder. It's over, Imani. The threat is over. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to collapse in relief. But she learned that in this world, threats never truly ended. For now, he agreed. Then, softer, I came back. Like I promised. Imani's eyes filled with tears, fear, relief, exhaustion, all crashing over her at once. You idiotic, reckless, impossible man. You could have died. But I didn't. Because I had something to come back to. Darius looked at Kofi, then at her. I have everything to come back to. The next 3 days were a blur of recovery. Darius's shoulder required surgery. The compound required repairs. The police investigated but found nothing in Ghana's underworld. Some violence was simply accepted and forgotten. Imani tended to Darius with a gentleness that surprised them both, changing bandages, forcing him to rest, keeping Kofi entertained so his father could heal. On the 4th morning, she found Darius in the courtyard, teaching Kofi basic taekwondo stances despite his doctor's orders to rest. The sight of them together, Darius patient and encouraging, Kofi determined and focused, made her chest ache. Your form is good, Darius was saying. Now remember, martial arts isn't about hurting people. It's about discipline, control, protecting those who can't protect themselves. Like you protected Mama and me? Kofi asked. Exactly like that. Darius adjusted Kofi's stance, praise warm in his voice. You're a natural. Imani watched them, and something inside her shifted. This dangerous, violent man had fought his way through hell to get back to them. Had kept every promise. Had shown her that maybe, there was a way to have both safety and love in a world built on neither. Mama, Kofi called. Look, Appa says I'm a natural. She walked over, and Darius's eyes found hers. In them, she saw hope. Questions. The possibility of something more than co-parenting under siege. Maybe we should talk, she said quietly. About what happens next. About us. I'd like that. Darius's smile was small but genuine. I'd like that very much. Kofi grabbed both their hands, pulling them together. Can Appa stay forever? Please. Imani looked at Darius, this complicated, dangerous, devoted man who'd turned her world upside down twice now. We'll see, baby. One day at a time. But when Darius squeezed her hand and she squeezed back, she thought maybe, just maybe, forever wasn't as impossible as she'd believed. That night, after Kofi was asleep, Darius's phone rang. He answered, listened, and went very still. When he hung up, his expression was unreadable. What is it? Imani asked. That was my intelligence contact in Johannesburg. His voice was carefully neutral. They've confirmed something I've suspected for years. My father, the man I thought died 15 years ago in Busan, he's alive. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? Kong Moon. The Phantom. He's alive, and he's been pulling strings across 3 continents for over a decade. Darius pulled up a photo on his phone, a man in his 60s, Korean features, standing in shadows. The family resemblance was undeniable. He orchestrated the Kamathi conflict. The threats. All of it. Why? Imani breathed. I don't know yet. But I'm going to find out. Darius looked at her, and she saw the weight of this new burden settling on his shoulders. This isn't over, Imani. It's just beginning. She should have been terrified. Should have grabbed Kofi and run while she had the chance. Instead, she moved closer, took Darius's hand. Then we face it together. You, me, and Kofi. That's what families do. Darius's eyes widened, then softened. Family. Family, she confirmed. For better or worse. He pulled her close, careful of his injured shoulder, and held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. Outside, the compound's walls stood strong. Inside, something fragile and precious was beginning to grow. Trust, partnership, maybe even love. Whatever storms were coming, they would face them together. And that was enough. For now, the end.